Hi everyone, my name is Victoria Fernandez and welcome to my channel. I like to inspire mental health. If you're not already subscribed to my channel, please subscribe. I post weekly videos about mental health and my experience with bipolar disorder. So with that, this week's video is going to be about what can you do to help somebody or a loved one who has bipolar disorder type 2. So I wanted to make this video because I've been asked by several people, how do I help my sibling or how do I help my friend who is going through this? And that is a very important question to ask and a very important topic to talk about, because it can be really hard to know what to say, what not to say, how to be there, how not to be there for the person you love. So here are several ways that were helpful to me whenever I was going through it, and some ways that weren't helpful and should be avoided. Sometimes people, the only thing that they need is somebody to listen to what they're feeling, not somebody to react, not somebody to say stop doing that, stop thinking that, but literally just somebody who will listen. And that is because oftentimes whenever you have bipolar depression, you feel completely alone. And what that means is that although you might say, I'm here, I get you, we're gonna say, no, you don't have this, you don't understand. So that is why sometimes it's just important to listen, to sympathize with the person in the sense of just being there and being understanding and not judging. So that's one of the most important things to do. So around the same topic, it's important to be able to create a safe space for the person to talk to you. So if they're telling you, I'm having suicidal thoughts, you're not gonna say, oh my god, stop thinking that. Like that is like, you know, people are completely messed up when they think all those things, you know, putting guilt and putting shame into them, but rather it's like, tell me more about it and let's go get help, because that's what you need when you're thinking those things. It's help. But I think not necessarily freaking out, because what happens when you show a lot of like freaking out and negative emotions, which I understand are natural since you're hearing that and you get worried, but at the same time, whenever that person has bipolar disorder hears that, they're like, I'm not going to share those things anymore, which can ultimately be dangerous. So it's important to set up a safe space where people can literally tell you what they're thinking, so you can have an open conversation and actually they'll trust you more and trust you to find the right help for them. When speaking with somebody who has bipolar depression type 2, it is important to not say, I understand, or things like putting yourself in the same place as that person, because that person's gonna think you've never gone through this, you don't understand the pain that I'm going through, and they'll close themselves off to you. So instead of saying, yeah, I get it, just say things like, how can I be there for you? Instead of saying like, you know, get over it, like I said before, again, how can I be there for you? What do you need from me? Or what do you need me to stop doing? It's important to also talk to that person and ask them, what do you not like me to say? What do you like me to say? In what space do I fit in? How can I help you and make you feel better each day? Another thing that was very personal to me is trigger topics or words. And when I was very depressed, I was super emotional. I was emotionally unstable. I would cry about absolutely anything and everything, and there were specific topics that were touched, whether that was with family or with friends, that made me really upset and would kind of make me spiral down to suicidal thoughts. And that wasn't their intention, that wasn't their fault, but it's like there are just certain things that maybe should be avoided while that person is not stable. That can be social causes, politics, you know, somebody saying bad stuff about the person who has like bipolar disorder and that making them feel bad, you know, even if we might act strong or like, oh, we don't care or whatever, in those moments it does matter. What people say matters. The conversations that are happening matter. Those words, we're hanging on to every single one of them. Of course, I can't speak for everybody. This was just my experience from when I was going through that time, and what would happen when some of those topics that I was very sensitive to would be touched. It was terrible because I would get so emotional and a lot of people didn't really understand it. And that's why I would tell some people, like, don't talk to me about that, because if you do, I'm gonna feel hurt. Obviously, once you start becoming stable, those things don't affect you the same way that they did at that time. But especially if you just been diagnosed, or you're in depression, or you're having a panic attack, there's things that should not be talked about just for the sake of having better mental health. Another way to help is by being patient. Change does not happen from one day to another. It took me a few years to get completely stable, and it's a process, right? And you have to understand like expectations that you have, and how you're putting those in that person who has bipolar disorder. You have to be conscious of the things that you're saying, the things, how you're acting, or the expectations that you have, because it's not like, oh, I'm gonna take medications, or I'm gonna go to therapy and I'm fine the next day. It's a long process. So it's important, as somebody who cares about the person, as a friend or as a family member, to really be patient and understand that it's not from one day to another, but rather it's a really long process. Another really important one is to not use blame. So it's like, oh, you're just feeling like this because you're like that, or because you watched a movie, or because I don't know, some other trait, and you're blaming the person who has bipolar disorder, who literally has a condition that they cannot control, over like being able to control those emotions, when it's not true. So what happens with blame? When you talk about blame, or when you say things like, oh, like we have to pay for your treatment, or like we have to like it's like such a burden to deal with you, the person who has this depression is taking in all those words and building guilt. And that guilt oftentimes is used as an, the world would be better if I wasn't here. My parents wouldn't have to pay for these things if I wasn't here. You start, you know what I mean? Like those thoughts, like suicidal thoughts, or thoughts of hurting yourself. The world is going to be better. So at this point, it might seem like a huge task, but a person with bipolar disorder who has depression needs a lot of reassurance. It's not a time where it's like, just be confident. Just like, I don't have to be telling you this all the time. It's hard. It's hard to, because your brain is telling you things that like, you're worthless, you shouldn't be here, nobody loves you, nobody cares about you. And so you're always looking for somebody to tell you, yes, I do care about you. Like you're just, it's a very difficult moment. So it's important to be careful with the things that you're saying in front of the person who has bipolar depression, because it's a difficult time. It's a difficult time where we battle with our own brains and we are trying to survive, but it's very, very hard. Do research about the mental illness, because doing research is going to help you understand the stigma, understand how to treat it, where to go, who to ask for help, and how to help. It is important. It is so important for family members and friends to understand what the disorder is, not just bipolar disorder, but any other type of mental illness. This will also allow you to be open to sources of help. If you're close to this person, offer them different kinds of help, not just therapy in person or a psychiatrist in person. There's online therapy, there's groups that help each other, there's a bunch of different types of things, there's books that talk about this. So it's like everybody's different, and there are many resources to help all these different types of people. For example, for me, I like online therapy, but that's just me. That's not necessarily everybody else. Another one that is very important to me, and I've talked about this in a lot of videos, is finding something, or helping that person find something that they feel passionate about and that they feel helpful in. So for me, that was the kids with disabilities, and I was in that club, and I was an officer, and I helped around, and I was with the kids all the time. So that helped me feel helpful, that made me feel happy and good, and that helped me forget about my mental illness. So whether that is helping dogs or volunteering in an elderly home, all these like small things make you feel helpful, and it makes you feel like you're doing it, not that anybody else around you is involved, but rather something good is coming out of you, even when you feel terrible about yourself. So that helped me survive, honestly. So that's why I recommend doing this. Lastly, it is important to understand that things will be different, and it is important for you to understand it so that you can help the person who has bipolar depression understand it. it's important to see that things will probably never be the same, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's a bad thing. If you think about it, that person was suffering. If there's going to be change, it's probably going to be good, because they were the same person who was diagnosed before they were diagnosed and then after they're diagnosed, and now it's just a way to treat that illness, which can be good in a lot of ways. But it's the most important thing is not to get hung up on things like like it'll never be like this again, or we'll never be able to do this again, because that's doing no help and that's not changing anything at all. And once you can psychologically process all of this, then you'll be much better fit to help that person who needs it. That you can help that person who has bipolar depression, bipolar 2, feel better, because it takes the pressure off of them that life will ultimately be different. So with that, I hope you guys find this video helpful. If you do, please like it and please subscribe and comment. And always remember that there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and a bad day does not mean a bad life.